what has happened over the course of the last few weeks is that Nick Freeman and I, who is a criminal defence lawyer, he's an author, he's a commentator, he's also known as Mr. Loophole, he and I have been having conversations about cyclists and cycling. Because one of the things that is entirely, to me, unfair about the cycling business is that people who ride bikes, by and large, are law-abiding citizens. They pay tax. Some of them even own cars. Many of them have families. But what they don't have is any responsibility for the vehicle on which they ride, i.e. the bicycle. Let's talk to Nick now and find out what we have decided to do about it. Nick, a very good morning to you. Welcome.
Good morning, Mike.
Thank you very much for joining us. Now, you and I have been having many conversations, unknown to the audience, over the course of the last few weeks, because you and I both kind of almost at the same time had this view that there's no level playing field out there if you're driving on the road and you're next to somebody who's cycling. Tell us why that is.
Well, if you're a motorist, you're very heavily regulated. There's law that's got teeth. You're accountable. You're responsible. I'm not suggesting motorists always drive properly, but if they don't, they can expect to be dealt with in the judicial system. If you're a cyclist, it's very hard to find out who actually is committing the offences. So cyclists commit offences on a very regular basis, and they're not accountable because we don't know who is cycling. And so what you and I have discussed is the lack of responsibility, the lack of accountability, amongst other things. And what we've both agreed is that there really needs to be a petition launch, which is what we've done today, to call for parity with cyclists and motorists, so that there is already law in place for cyclists. They're already referred to in the Road Traffic Act of 1988. But if you don't know who's cycling, and you have a video of someone, it might be a video of a cyclist going through a red light, mounting the pavement, pedestrians moving out the way. It's all very interesting. It's bad cycling, it's dangerous cycling, but who is it? How do you bring them to account? So what we've discussed and what we've agreed upon is a system that should be introduced, so that basically cyclists have to be accountable in exactly the same way that motorists are. So right from the basic points of insurance, identification, penalty point system, proper punishment, so that the law isn't redundant and the law will actually have some bite. That cyclists also need to be responsible, because we're seeing a massive growth in cycling. There's a sharing, as you referred to Kensington, and we can talk about that if you like, about very limited space, the pollution and the whole host of problems that's causing. And so, what we want is safer road space for everybody. And, if you're a cyclist, you will be aware, a cyclist will be aware, they're 15 times more likely to be killed than a motorist. And there's something like 4,000 life-changing cycling injuries a year, about 100 fatalities every year. So this legislation is not, what we're calling for is not in any way anti-cycling. What we're calling for is legislation to put everyone on an equal footing and to make the roads safer for everybody.
Yes,
and
because as you say, Nick, the increase in the numbers of people cycling has meant that the laws governing them are so out of date as to be completely and utterly irrelevant, right?
They are. I've been a lawyer for almost 40 years, and when law changes for motorists, for example, mobile phones, all the time there's new legislation dealing with it, and there's this sort of yawning chasm for cycling law since 1988. And you have, for example, dangerous cycling, £2,500 fine, no points. You're never going to find out who's cycling dangerous. There's no speed limit. There's no drink, drive or drug limit. There's an offence of driving whilst unfit. So the law just hasn't played catch up, and it urgently needs to, because we want to encourage cyclists. We need to find a safe space for them. We want to encourage them. It would be great if we could cycle safely. But for that to happen, we need to have responsibility and accountability. And the starting point for me is legislation that really is completely aligned with motorists, because we're on the roads, we all need to contribute, and we all need to cycle or drive responsibly. And if we don't, we need to be punished for it.
Yes, I think
that's what needs to happen. And there are many, many cyclists who have contacted me, aware of what you and I are trying to achieve, and saying you're absolutely right. And it's only a small minority of, unfortunately, some aggressive cyclists who do not want to be accountable, and one has to question why.
Yes, exactly right. So we're launching a petition today, signed by 5 sort of founding members, if you like, of that petition. You and I are 2 of them. Cristo Foufas is a 3rd, who works here at Talk Radio. He does a late night show. I may be talking to him a bit later on. Donald MacLeod, who is a cyclist himself and a businessman up in Scotland, because this is not just about London, Nick, it's about the whole country. And also Susan Hall, leader of the Tories at the London Assembly.
Absolutely, yeah. You've got a range of people, several of those people, including myself, actually cycle. Yeah. They're very keen cyclists. And we all come about this with a common goal, and that really is just to make the roads safer and fairer for everybody. And, if we have accountability, then I think that will naturally happen.
No, of course. And what can we do? What can we do to suggest to other people that they sign this petition, and where can they get their hands on it?
Well, it's going to be very widely circulated. You and Cristo have a fantastic platform. With social media, this petition hopefully is going to go far and wide. It's far and wide. It's being launched today. Hopefully, it's being launched as we speak. I just ask people to look. It's a petition specifically designed for the government. It's a government petition. So it will be. People will find it on social media. And they will be asked to sign it. So it will be available. It's not going to be hiding. It will be widely available and widely known on social media, and hopefully it will attract the interest of the media generally.
Yes. And I mean, the funny thing is that whenever this subject comes up, and we've discussed it on this show before, Nick, the cyclist lobby, and I call them that because there are certain people in the cyclist lobby who are fanatics, who are extremists, who are quite unpleasant, can be very unpleasant on social media, and are kind of almost one-track minded about the use of cyclists and the use of bicycles in towns where cars should be banned. They always say to me, well, why would we need to change the rules? Why would, I never understand why they don't want to be registered or why they don't want to be identifiable.
Well, I think that's a very good question, and the answer is quite obvious, isn't it? Because if you're not identifiable, you're not really accountable, and if you're not accountable, you can do what you like. You cycle with impunity. Yes. Can you imagine saying to motorists, "Look, I tell you what, there's no law requiring you to have a registration plate. Take it off, enjoy yourself."
Yes.
So basically, it's saying you've got a green light here to do whatever you want, and what we're then doing is relying on the individual. And most people, would accept we're responsible citizens. We're on the roads. The roads are potentially dangerous. They're used by motorists, lorries, pedestrians, etc., etc. We all need to contribute to make this safer. There are far too many accidents which have catastrophic effects on families, the people concerned. And so we need to move forward to make the road safer. And we also, we need to, there's a massive green movement moving forward, which is something to be welcomed. We welcome cyclists for the obvious eco-friendly benefits that they have. But, Kensington High Street illustrates beautifully, along with many other, about 25% of cycling schemes have been set up and now being unraveled, because what they're doing is they're actually causing more pollution, not less, because what you're doing is you're taking away valuable road space and causing huge congestion with motorists. The bicycle lanes are not being really used effectively. We're spending about £5,000 per cyclist to get a cyclist in a cycle lane. And, we're blocking the emergency service. We're causing business massive amounts of money because of delays and congestion. And the ironical thing is the whole purpose of this is to establish a greener environment. And we're doing the very opposite.
Yes.
So, I think, Mike, we need proper consultation.
Yes.
We need sensible thinking. We don't, there are one or two people in positions of power who are very keen cyclists who may have their own agenda. We've been told, haven't we, that, our very, very busy Prime Minister, who's under massive pressure at the moment, is apparently going to take time out to cycle on Kensington High Street. That's not really what it's about. What it's about, looking at how does society benefit as a whole? How are we going to produce less pollution? How are we going to make it safer?
Yes.
And we just need to be reasonable and sensible, rather than saying, I'm going to have a myopic attitude. This is what we need to do. I love cycling. I don't want the motorists on the road. They don't have a right. And we have this war. We need to be conciliatory and sensible. And, if we're going to be aggressive and myopic, we're not going to achieve anything. And they are the minority in any case, Mike.
Yes.
And I know many of your listeners, I'm sure, will get on board and say, look, this actually is very sensible, because ultimately we want to reduce accidents, reduce the fatalities, obviously, and make our climate more green, more friendly and safer, but also keep traffic flowing.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
There's so many things that can be done to achieve that.
Brilliant stuff. Nick, great to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. We'll be talking to you some more, I'm sure, over the course of the week as this petition grows. Please do go and sign it. We'll be putting out links to it. Cristo will be talking about it later on his show. Maybe we'll get Sadiq Khan to sign it, because, of course, he surely would want everyone to be equal in London, wouldn't he? This is Talk Radio.